So I think some of the most important points for a housing authority when they're preparing for an implementation are they really are starting to think about, hey, I think we need to change. There are multiple different details that really differ from any other public sector ERP implementation that you need to really keep in mind, especially when you're getting started and really even before you think about an implementation. So you really need to know and have your programs documented. What are all of those finite details that you think that you might need? First year applicable fraction. When did this building come into service? When were you able to start leasing it up? Things of that nature. Just very very detailed data points for your particular programs. Make sure you have those documented and that the people who are going to be involved in the implementation have that at their fingertips because they will be asked for it. And that really is the theme of a housing authority implementation is the data. The data and understanding what that looks like and where it's at is critical. So many times when you get into an implementation, especially in a housing authority, you're likely coming from an outdated system or a legacy system that maybe you have grown so rapidly that you are just duct taping and have band-aids everywhere because you have grown so fast that you haven't actually been able to make your system work the way that you needed it to. And it hasn't adapted with you and your organization as you've grown. So it's really important that you have these pieces documented and that you understand how to pull data from your system and really know where these things live. I think that is the data conversion piece for a housing authority is probably the hardest and most difficult piece of the actual conversion because the system is made for compliance. The system is made to do the things that you need it to do because it is a specialty system for your particular sector. However, the data that goes into it can be a completely different story. So really understanding how you're going to retrieve that data and import it into the new system is critical, and making sure that your staff have the information that they need to be able to put it in and make the new system work. When you're a housing authority and you're really going through a transformation this large, it's a lot of change and it happens fast. And of course, the implementations can go as quickly or as slow as you'd like them to based on your agreement with your vendors. But that's just the thing. You get into it and you don't know what you don't know. And so there are many times where you start this process with the vendor and you start into the implementation and you realize I'm in way over my head. We don't know what we're doing, or we haven't planned for this appropriately. And so that's when many times you find a third party independent consultant or partner, if you will, to come in and help guide you through this process. And 9 times out of 10, you're not in a bad spot. You can always continue and push forward and redirect and even plan before you get started, or restart the project. We've done that multiple times. It's never too late to do that. And so it's really important to have people in there that understand the contracts, that understand the agreements that have been made, to hold everyone accountable. It's not just you and the vendor, it's all three. Everybody has to be held accountable for what they've promised to provide, and also making sure that your staff understand the decisions that are being made and what their options are. Oftentimes, 9 times out of 10, you will see that people get in these meetings and they have no idea about the decisions that they're about to have to make. And they're asking, well, I don't know what this is. Can you tell me? And sometimes the vendors don't provide that explanation to you, or even they will say, well, you have this option and this is all you can do. No, that's not right. They have they have multiple options, and they have to understand what their options are to make those educated decisions. And so that's the best part about having a partner, is you have someone that's in your corner that helps you make those decisions and gives you the tools that you need to be empowered to move this forward and to create this change. I think that in a transformation or a large ERP project, or any project within an organization that's going to drastically change not only how an organization functions, but its staff's day to day. You have people, especially in government organizations, that have been there for sometimes decades. They've done the same role, or, in the same department. And they've been doing the same process, the same way of doing things every single day for however many years they've been with this organization. And sometimes it's a shift, it is certainly a change management hurdle to come across someone who has been doing the same thing for that long, and they do the same thing because they've done it that way for years. And you really have to make those stakeholders within the project your cheerleaders. You have to get their buy-in, and you really have to make sure that they feel heard and that they feel seen, and that they are going to be better. The organization as a whole is going to be better because of this change that's going to happen. So within these projects, you really have to think about the change management aspect, because it starts before the implementation even kicks off. It begins in the planning. It begins in the discovery for the assessment, really getting a partner in there to learn the ins and outs, and gaining the buy-in of the people who have been there for 20 plus years, or even someone who started yesterday. Whatever that looks like, is really having the people to come in, learn the business and learn the people, and making them feel seen and heard, and that they're up to date, that the implementation is transparent. And because often you'll find that people are like, oh, we're going live on this system and I just heard about it last week. Or we have training on this system and we just heard about it last week. So really making sure that people feel like they know what's happening, and they know that everything is going well, and that they're well communicated to. I think that anyone would be hesitant for change if their day-to-day was just ripped. It's like a Band-Aid, just ripped off, like, here you go, do this new thing. And you really have to think about the people aspect of ERP, because these are not just technology projects. These are absolutely people projects. And you have to take that into consideration when you're making these large changes that will affect your organization, not just tomorrow, but 10 years down the road. When you create change, not just internally, but also when you have residents who are, you're actively engaging with, you have to teach them and you have to communicate to them about how this new system is going to affect their day-to-day. And so if you are implementing let's say a rent portal, like a payment portal, so that they could go and pay their monthly rent or set up recurring payments, things of that nature, you can't just spring that on them and say, hey, next month you have to pay your rent via this new portal. Good luck. You actually have to sit down with them, and many times at a property level, and explain to them the changes and give it as an option. So you have to think about it in a kind of a tiered approach to rolling it out. So, hey, we're doing this new thing. You're going to have the option to do rent payments online. We're going to have this great new portal. You can see what's happening in our properties, things of that nature. Just the baseline communication portion of this is coming up. and really staggering this rollout to where you're not just communicating, you start to train them on how they access the portal, when it's coming, and sitting down with them at a property level and teaching them how to actually create their account. Like I said earlier, many times they're elderly properties. And so it can be, the user base may not be open to having a rent portal or even an email. We've seen that before, so you really have to meet people where they are, especially when you have people that are external and utilizing your systems, and really think about, how can we make this streamlined? How can we literally make this as simple as possible so that anyone who has access to this portal or really interacts with the portal can easily process their payment and feel safe about it too? I think a few red flags to check out, or at least a few red flags to look out for when you're looking and vetting a software system for a housing authority, is really making sure that the vendors are not pushing you to sign a contract. That's the biggest thing. Many times they'll come in, they'll show you a demo, they'll literally roll out the red carpet for you and show you all the bells and whistles and the great, things that their system can do for you. And that's really kind of like a mirage, if you will. It's like this lovely fantasy island that their system is going to take you to. It's going to be this wonderful thing, but they're not showing you the details of how the system actually works. And so not just a contract, but also the demos. Make sure that, you're actually seeing what you need to see, especially when it comes to your programs and compliance and all of the other really specific details for a housing authority. Contracts, don't sign one, especially if they want you to pay it upon contract execution. You're not getting anything. You can't even utilize the system yet. So we'll always, talk about that. And really, I think that another piece is, if they're not pushing you to have the right people in on the conversations. This is a big change, and one person can't make that change or can't make that decision to just bring in a whole new system. So ensuring that you have the right people in the room and the right people understand what is going to happen if you sign that contract. Many times they'll just go straight to the decision maker. Who can actually sign this contract? And I'm going to go talk to them and make that. It really needs to be an organization decision, and moving that piece forward. When you see a vendor who is pushing you to execute a contract, or you simply don't know that there could be anything wrong, you've seen the mirage, you're on that wonderful island that the picture that they've painted for you, and you're starting to see that maybe the picture was a little skewed. Maybe it doesn't really fit our needs, and you get into implementation. They're gonna push back on that, and they're also gonna look at the contract. They're gonna say, well, we said in our contract that you have to give us a so-and-so notice, and that you owe us all this money upon halting the project, or you have to pay the remaining amount on the contract. There's so many different things, and I think a lot of the red flags stem from the contract, because many organizations don't understand the language of a software vendor, and that's where they really get you. And many times vendors will put this great big discount in front of you on the contract and say, if you sign this contract by the end of the month, we will discount your first year X amount. And normally it's a very nice discount. But what about years 3, 4, and 5? And what does that percentage look like after years 3 or after year 2? What does that look like, and how much are they going to increase that every single year? The financial piece is really critical, especially if you don't understand how SaaS products are priced, and the licenses that are associated with those. It can be very confusing. So the cost structure for those can really get you down in the weeds of, your cost per unit, which are your licenses in the system. So the financial piece can be really, really critical and really make or break the project going forward, because will the organization be able to afford that moving forward based on the budget amounts that they currently have? And have they locked in those prices? Do they offer 10-year pricing? Sometimes you don't hear of that from vendors, but some vendors do have that type of pricing as far as a timeline. So what are your options? I think that's the most important thing in contracting, especially for a housing authority, because you do have a set budget amount, and you have to take all of this to your board and you have to get it approved, and the success of the project starts with the contract. So I think some of the most important points for a housing authority when they're preparing for an implementation, or they really are starting to think about, hey, I think we need to change. And that can, depending on what the size of the change looks like, maybe it's a full ERP, maybe it's just really trying to start and understand what they're looking for. I think the things that you need to do first are really understand where your organization is currently at. What does that look like? Do your staff members have the capacity to go through this project? Do we have enough staff to do this? It is a huge undertaking to do an ERP. But I will say, you don't have to gone are the days of having to have 15 extra people just to go through an ERP project. You don't have to have that. You can have great partners who can help augment your staff and augment, the learning process a bit more, because they've been through that, and, really, really understand, get a temp check of the whole organization. I think that's a critical piece. Take a look at your data. Always take a look at your data. Understand where it's at, where it lives, who takes care of it, what shape is it in? Have we not touched it in 10 years and it's just, not standardized at all, or it's in 15 different databases, and you have this here and that there? Really take a look at it, see where it's at. Not saying you have to map it or anything to get started, but really just understand where it's at and how you would gain access to it. And then start to think about where you want to be. Where do you want to be with this change? And if you were to implement a software system, what does done look like? What does your organization look like after this transformation? So mapping out where you are currently and picturing where you want to be and how you want to be functioning as an organization, and how you want to serve your people and the residents that you're serving on the day-to-day, on the front lines at the properties. So really taking those into consideration, and at a very basic level, looking at those three items. If you're starting an ERP project, or you're thinking about starting an ERP project, and you're just unsure of how to go about it, or maybe you've already started and you're starting to feel like maybe we should pump the brakes, or you're second guessing your software option, there are people that can help. And Avero is certainly a partner that can help you with that. We have helped multiple different housing authorities across the nation really gain a successful approach to these implementations, and really have a successful go live on adoption and stability in their organization through these transformations. So if you are one of those people who are thinking or have already started, you can get in touch with Avero by simply emailing us at info@averoadvisors.com or visiting our website at averoadvisors.com or checking us out on LinkedIn. We have lives every Wednesday at 10 a.m. So if you also just want to learn a little bit more, you can visit us there too. So check us out and hope to hear from you soon.